Hey large and small adult people of Cambridge, sometimes you gotta leave the real or imaginary kids at home, am I right? Well, check out this list of large adult stuff to do in March, from comedy to film festivals to tenants' rights meetings. Brava gente de Cambridge! On March 18th at 6:30 p.m., the Cambridge Learning Center in Cambridge offers ESOL classes, English for Spanish or other languages. They have 7 levels of English conversation, grammar, reading, and writing available. Please remember to bring proof of Cambridge residence. Nos vemos, vous verrons, und wir werden dich sehen. Oh, and look here, all you aspiring Gates Foundation employees. It's the annual Social Enterprise Conference, March 2nd and 3rd, 2019, put on by the Harvard Business School. It features speeches, panels, workshops, all into using business principles to improve lives and the world. Because if there's one thing we can count on these past few decades, it's Ivy Leaguers using business principles to improve people's lives. On March 5th at 9 p.m., come test your pipes at karaoke open mic night at John Harvard's Brew House. Literally sing your heart out. Actually, not literally, because that'd be gross and messy. Check out 12th Night by the Actors Shakespeare Project, March 29th through 31st at the Lyric Stage Company. 12th Night is a tale of unrequited love, hilarious and heartbreaking. Haha, I love to laugh at heartbreak. Twins are separated in a shipwreck and fall in love with a bunch of verbose weirdos. Is it possible for this to all end well? Better a witty fool than a foolish wit. Prices start at $15. Landlord troubles? Questions about your security deposit? Come to 26 Court Street in Boston on March 21st, where a housing professional from Boston's Office of Housing Stability will provide advice. Here you will get an overview of tenants' rights and responsibilities, tips on how to handle housing concerns, and lots of resources for a smoother tenancy. Registration is recommended. Laugh all you want for free. Come to Cityside Bar at 1960 Beacon Street on March 11th for the best comedy you'll find on a Monday night, hosted by famed local comedian and historical reenactor Sam Ike. Haha, speaking of comedy, check out Improv Boston Studio 40 for some great sketch humor. At Studio 40, you can spend an evening with some of the most exciting veteran and up-and-coming teams in the Chowder Republic, March 8th at 7 p.m. I just made up the Chowder Republic thing. And finally, film lovers, there's a ton of film festivals screening this March. The Boston Underground Film Festival, screening independent, provocative, and experimental films that deliberately push the envelope, March 20th to 24th. The Irish Film Festival, showing movies created by or dealing with the Irish diaspora. The Wicked Queer Film Festival, screening films about or produced by the LGBTQ community, March 28th to April 7th. The VinFin Moving Images Festival, focusing on people living with behavioral and mental conditions, March 2nd. Or the Salem Film Festival, showing movies about witches. Hitting. It's not funny. It's one of the New England's largest documentary film festivals, March 29th through April 4th. All right, adults, go do some adult things in Cambridge this March and tell them CCTV sent you. Unless you get into trouble, then we never have this conversation.
Hey Cambridge, I'm super excited. I've got Ryan McQuaid here. He's teaching a course at Lesley University called Introduction to Interactive Design, here to talk to us about Come Play at the Cambridge Annex.
Yes, very exciting stuff.
And welcome.
Good to be here.
So, what is Come Play at our Cambridge City Hall Annex?
In its simplest form, it's a cardboard arcade.
Holy cow.
Yeah, so these are projects that were made by 13 interactive design students at Lesley University.
All right.
And they take a visitor through the process of how to create basically a mobile game using different materials, sketching. We use lo-fi materials, which manifests itself in the cardboard.
Okay.
To create these rapid prototypes
of,
what it feels to play these games like physically.
Yeah.
And then they take that information and that user testing and they make a mobile game mock-up.
Okay.
They basically use that information from the initial stages. So
how did this cardboard arcade come together?
It's an interesting partnership between our Lesley University College of Art and Design.
Okay.
We have an actual office for community engagement, specifically making partnerships with local businesses, schools, museums, consortia around the Cambridge area. And we were able to partner with Cambridge Arts in the city of Cambridge to present over at their Gallery 344.
I mean, Leslie is a Cambridge institution.
Yeah, no, but we're doing a lot of things with, social justice and, diversity and all of these really interesting initiatives to bring art to, the community. And it's really fascinating and doing really good work with it.
Yeah. So at the Annex, we're seeing what you're calling lo-fi prototyping.
Yes.
And they're going to be games.
Yes, playable games, fully interactive.
And you have about like 6, 7, how many?
There are 6.
All right.
Yes.
What kind of games and what kind of games am I going to see?
It's a wide variety.
All right.
So the only constraint that was placed on the students was to design for a specific end user.
All right.
So this could be anybody outside of what we consider the average human. When we consider the average human, maybe we say this is 5'6" person, and we have an image of in our heads of what an average human being is.
Okay.
But the idea is to design outside of that and to take everybody into consideration. So some games were designed with an old woman in mind, or maybe a single parent with 3 children. Or things where the user has some sort of constraint, and thus the game should be designed with that constraint in mind.
Kind of talk me through, because you're using the term like end user.
Yes.
What is an end user, and
Right.
what does interactive and can you tell me a little bit more about interactive design?
Right. Okay. So an end user is really what the design process, as we teach it, is designed. It's designed around.
So the person who's going to handle your game.
Right, or the group of people, right? So when we sit down to design anything, whether this is a video game or a mobile app or a toothbrush,
chair,
right? Exactly. Is that we have to consider who is using this ultimately.
All right.
So when we think of the average person, that only services a very small portion of who is actually going to use this thing. We have to think of, what are these person's physical abilities and disabilities, cognitive, cultural. So these are all things that we take into consideration when designing these games, is who is eventually going to use this and what design decisions can we make in the process to service those.
You said that there will be about 6 games. It's on view at the Annex through the end of April.
Yes.
And while we were talking, you said there's going to be a content refresh, which I put that in quotation marks. What do you mean by that?
Sure. So about halfway through the exhibition period, the current class that I'm teaching now, same exact class, will be refreshing the content, so the arcade games, with their own.
Oh, okay.
So, and what the exciting part of it is that they're designing for the same end users. So you really get to see 2 approaches to the same design problem.
Okay.
So you'll get to see, if you were to design an arcade game specifically for a wheelchair user, there are 2 versions of that interpretation. So you get to see, these, a group of students really tackle this same problem, and I think that's really where design shines.
Let's take that example you gave of an older woman. Can you tell me a little bit about maybe how the game was adapted for that user?
Right.
Or not adapted, but designed for that user.
Right. So we had about 6 or 7 end user scenarios that every group picked out of a hat. They picked out their end user, and one group picked up this old woman. We called her Beatrice. She's a 70 to 80-year-old woman who has arthritis in her hands, so fine motor skills in her hands wasn't exactly something she was comfortable with. Maybe she was, low mobility, so it had to be a seated experience. Eyesight may be poor, so
nothing too small.
Nothing too small. It had to be high contrast, maybe no reading even. So trying to figure out what does a design solution look like for someone with those constraints.
And it feels like kind of unspoken. It has to be fun.
Oh yes, that was the number one.
that was the
number one thing, and I think it was probably the most difficult. Is that everybody in the class was kind of talking, really technical and really getting into the weeds of, like this end user.
Yeah.
But the question that always came back, well, is this fun?
Yeah.
And a lot of people didn't have a good answer to that. So
it's a little subjective.
It's incredibly subjective, but in the end, it's probably the most important part of the design process. Is
like delight.
It's exactly, the delight is the term. For sure.
And this is part of Leslie's School of Design?
Yes, it's part of the interactive design track at Leslie University College of Art and Design.
Okay.
So what's interesting about Leslie's take on design is that we have actually successfully split design into 3 treads. We have print design, as we know it as posters and, all the traditional print. And then we're catching up with 21st century and really implementing an interactive design track as we understand it today, which is, iPhone. And we're thinking about technology.
Yeah.
And then we also have a user experience track, which is completely online.
All right. Well, again, so that's Let's Play, Go Play, the Cardboard Arcade. It's at the City Hall Annex. It's really cool. It's a cool idea, a cool concept. Thank you so much, Ryan, for coming and speaking to us. And check out the Cardboard Arcade.